Hello and welcome to that time of the week where we look at a few Tinto maps, and of course this is now showing off my home country of England, so I am very, very excited for this. Just as a point of note, this Tinto Maps is coming out as a little bit of an earlier time than usual. It's coming out, for me personally, at 13:15. Now, for Tinto Studios and Paradox Studios, Stockholm and Barcelona are on the same time zone, it's coming out at 12:15. And, well, considering tomorrow is the anniversary of the signing of the Magna Carta, which is a very important document in British history, and the Dev Diary came out at 12:15, which was the year that the Magna Carta was signed. I think some things are being stated here. Actually, I think the Magna Carta was the 16th. It was the 15th or the 16th of June. I can't remember which. But I do in fact enjoy the playing with the time of the Dev Diary release. I'm curious as to what we're going to get next. What kind of time shenanigans we're going to get, or if we're just going to get the standard 3 p.m. Release time for the next one. Either way, before we get into the Tinto maps, I must, of course, do the standard thing of asking you all to subscribe to the channel, because that actually helps quite a lot if I actually say these words, because a lot of you aren't subscribed yet. And if you want to keep up to date and informed with everything coming out of Paradox Tinto and all of the stuff to do with Project Caesar, then this is the best place to do it. And subscribing helps me out, it helps you out, it's a win-win. Let's get into the Dev Diary. So, British Isles, my homeland. Pavi and the rest of the content design team are busy working on the feedback for the previous Tinto maps, so St. Dave UK. I feel like maybe he has some amount of knowledge for what he may be talking about, is going to be standing in. Some of you might have seen him here and there on the forums. Yes, of course. Long story short is that he works on a very secret game whose name he is contractually obliged to reject. Yeah, that's right. It's why have we got two words here? Europa Universalis 5. There we go. Nailed it. This week you get a double whammy, mostly because it's hard to show Britain on its own in a screenshot, partly to sidestep the British Isles naming controversy. Yeah, that's a controversy only in this part of the British Isles, but it is what it is. And because the gameplay of them both is so very different. The part of the Europa is divided into two distinct regions, Great Britain and Ireland. Are they actually going to be separate regions on the map? Would be interesting. The mild oceanic climate from the Köppen climate thing, I've forgotten what exactly it's called, but yeah, they're using the Köppen climate model, dominates the Isles. Where it cools towards the inland Pennines and the Scottish Highlands, we represent it with a wintry and dry, that's a word, continental climate. So here we are, we have a little bit of Arctic in the very highland areas, a little bit of that in Wales as well, and then mostly oceanic and a bit of continental. Fair enough. For the topography, the Isles are dominated by green and pleasant flatlands and low rolling hills. The peripheries punctuated by rocky mountains and craggy highlands. We'd like to add some more impassable locations in northern England and the Scottish borders to make manoeuvres a little bit more interesting and strategic, but would like suggestions from people far more familiar with the Pennines. So what I would say is I haven't lived in England for holy balls, almost 20 years. But I know that the North Yorkshire moors are very... You wouldn't march an army through the North Yorkshire moors, like, at all. There is 0% chance. And to this day, they are a really quite vast region of land where nothing useful grows, and basically it's used for nothing. So maybe that could be something that could be added as impassable terrain. There's potential for that. And we'll probably end up seeing it be marshland or something along those lines when we get to the vegetation, which is right now. The great moors, bogs, and fens are represented by sparse vegetation. Meanwhile, much of the land is still wooded. Okay, so the North Yorkshire moors are sparse instead of marsh. I'm pretty sure marsh was a thing, right? I'm gonna quickly check that. We want to do. It's not in here. It's in Tinto Talks, and then we go to reference materials for the map thread. We want to see. There isn't actually any marsh. Wait, no, it's a topography. Marsh is a topography. Okay. So topographically, we haven't seen a map for it. Fair enough. I would say sparse marsh probably works pretty well here. That's and also down in the this kind of arid region here. Essex, Norfolk, all that kind of stuff up here would work for marsh as well. But yeah, no, okay. Most of the land's still wooded, of course, lots of grasslands, farmlands, etc. Nice. Raw materials. The raw goods situation aims to reflect the economic reality of medieval Britain. Shepherding was common on every corner of the islands. A lot of the wool produced was sold to the industrial hub of the Low Countries to be manufactured into cloth, which was then sold back to British markets. Further northwest we go, the less fertile the terrain, and such the greater reliance on pastoral farming, such as livestock over wheat. The western hills and valleys also expose a greater number of mineral delights, including the historic Stannery mines of Devon and Cornwall. So let's zoom in on that, and we can have a look around. And yeah, definitely seeing a lot of coal in Wales, which is very, very important. Tin in Cornwall is hugely historic. That is one of the big locations for tin in the entirety of Europe, which is, good. I'm seeing some marble here, which is something I was not aware of. My own homeland region is producing wool, and we'll get to that when we look at the locations map. But yeah, no, this is looking pretty good. Once again, looking for them medicaments, but I see them. Look, I'm not blind anymore. I see them, and I will point out that me looking for medicaments in every Tinto map thread, it has become a little bit of a meme, I will admit. But also, I was looking for a yellow color. I don't know why, but I just assumed medicaments would be either yellow or blue. And I was just glossing over the pink for whatever reason. Or I guess peach, or whatever color you want to call that. I don't know. But yeah, no, we see they do have medicaments on the islands. That makes sense, of course. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything stand out here as, oh my god, I can't believe we had that. Except maybe the dyes? But otherwise, looking good. There was a thread on the forums after the last Tinto maps, basically asking if fish and livestock could get their colors changed. Because fish was yellow and livestock was blue. So now fish is blue, which makes more sense, and livestock has changed to green, which is, I think, a lot better for it. It definitely does seem a lot more realistic. And then for island, which we kind of glossed over, livestock all over the place makes 100% sense. There are more sheep on that island than there are people. And yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense to me. Lovely. Moving on to the markets. As you can see, there's two starting markets are London and Dublin. Aside from London, we could have chosen almost any town from Aberdeen to Bristol. We chose Dublin as it was the main trade centre in Ireland, and also because it handsomely splits the Isles from east to west of the Pennines, demonstrating the impact that the terrain can have on dynamic market attraction. They're both shades of red because they're coloured after the market centre's top overload country. Market control is a viable playstyle, and we like to think of it as a form of map painting for countries not focused on traditional conquest routes. I'm not hugely a fan of this, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't think there is any real reality where people in, say, Liverpool are more trading with Dublin than they are with London. There was a mod that came out for EU4 some time ago called Beyond the Pale, and it was eventually rolled into the mod Beyond Typers, which if you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you will remember I did a multiplayer with Arumba in. And it did this same thing, and it does not work for me. I think a better situation would maybe be a trade center in maybe Aberdeen and having the north-south split. I just don't think it makes sense that a trade center in a region so vastly inferior in population, please take those words together, is going to be more influential over any part of Great Britain than Great Britain itself. I don't see that being the case. But hey, if this is better for balance, then it's better for balance, and it is what it is. It doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't seem realistic or natural, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on once more to culture. We've decided to go with a monolithic English culture. My brother in Christ. I'm sorry. What are you talking about? Even in frickin' 2024, the north-south divide is enough to say that we are different cultures. It's slightly a meme, but it's also just true. Bloody Southerners. Look, especially in 1337, it is simply the case that it is only 300 years since the Normans came and invaded, and I guess formed this English culture. And the North is not there yet. It took longer for the North to accept, I will say, like this Norman rule than the South. Partly because William the Conqueror, William the Bastard, committed frickin' genocide against Northern England. And you know, those wounds don't just like heal instantly. I feel like having a Northern English and a Southern English makes more sense for the start of the game. And you know what? Maybe they can merge later in the game. But I do disagree with having just a single monolithic English culture, if I'm being perfectly honest. Could have forced the introduction of a second Northumbrian or even third Mercian culture, but typically they are not really considered separate peoples. The English, though diverse in origin with a variety of dialects, is actually kind of huge here as well, because, again, even in 2024, the difference between accents, even between people living one town apart, can be so huge, and that has, in extreme cases, led to just different dialects. The language spoken in the north of England still includes a lot of Norse words. For example, it is not uncommon for parents, generally grandparents, because it is kind of dying out, to call children bairns. And that comes from the Norse word that turned into Swedish barn. The Swedish word for children is barn. And we still have people in the north of England calling children bairn because of that. You go to the south of England and they wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about. They have no idea. That's dialect. And to say that, 700 years that this has survived has gotten somehow more diverse than it was in 1337, I'm sorry, no. I disagree. I very much disagree. They'd already begun to coalesce in the face of Viking invasions hundreds of years before. Yeah, but apparently an extra 700 years still has it be distinct. Scotland, conversely, is a real porridge of cultures. The Lowland Scots, who speak a dialect of Northumbrian English that later develops into Scots language, dominate their kingdom from their wealthy burghs, and are gradually encroaching onto the pastoral lands of the Gaelic Highlanders. The Norse Gaelic clansmen watch from the Western Isles, with some old settlements remaining around Galloway. The far north, ironically called Sutherland, retains some Norse presence. Wales, conquered for around a century by this point, plays host to the English burghers looking to make a few quid, as well as the for those uninformed, quid is the same as it's just the denomination of currency. It means pounds, it means euros, it means dollars. A Brit living in the USA will call a dollar a quid. It just means currency. I call euros quid. It just is what it is. And I think it's from that quid pro quo. That's where that comes from. I think I'm making that up. I'm probably not making that up, but it's not something I'm going to back up by Googling right now. As well as the descendants of Norman adventurer knights in the Marcher lordships, but is still majority Welsh-speaking from Anglesey to Cardiff. The Anglo-Irish, representing the spectrum from Cambro-Norman knights to the so-called Old English settlers, live in great numbers in southeastern trading towns from Dublin to Cork, as well as in smaller numbers in frontier outposts. The cosmopolitan towns across the Isles are also home to the people elsewhere in Europe, most notably Flemish weavers from the lowlands, though their numbers are too small to impact the map mode. The Norman bastards dominates as the horrifically evil southern bastards for both the kingdoms and their subjects. The conquest of 1066 is no longer fresh, but continuing the bonds between the aristocratic classes of England, Scotland, and France have kept the French language alive and strong. So we are looking at this here. Obviously, unified English. Again, I don't agree with it, but whatever. Welsh is here with bits of English spread around a bit. We've got Cornish down in the south, Scots, Highlands, and a bit of melding there. And then in Ireland we have the Anglo-Irish down on the coast and in Dublin, and then that, I guess, is spreading throughout. We've got Galway, I think that one's Limerick, this one here is Cork, then, Belfast, etc. in the north. But yeah, okay. Like I said, I don't agree with unified English culture. I think it is perfectly fine to have it split in two and merge it later in the game. But, maybe that'll be something that happens if there's enough of a, not outcry, but suggestion. If there is enough of a suggestion that it be changed, then it will be. As we have seen. So, religion. It's not even worth taking a screenshot of the religion map mode. There are tiny minorities of Jewish people in some Scottish and Irish towns, as they've been expelled from England. I wasn't aware of that. But they're so small in number they don't even register on the map mode. Other than that, it's all Catholic, but not for long. John Wycliffe has entered the chat. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess maybe there's probably no Norse religion up in the north at this point. They are very much only probably in Iceland and Greenland at this point, and still even minorities there. And Irish had been, their church had been very much rolled into the fold of Catholic after how we see it in CK3, where they have their own kind of version of Catholic that still reveres the Pope, but is just slightly different. But yeah, everything Catholic makes sense. But now we move on to areas based on the 4 provinces of Ireland, Meath, and splitting England roughly into larger Anglo-Saxon earldoms, which have some similarity with the modern regions, Yorkshire. Yorkshire's bloody huge anyway. Yeah, these are not provinces, so there's 2 layers beneath this. And I don't know, for this is just fine. Maybe this could have been called Yorkshire, but Northumbria is still fine here. And then people who've been playing EU4 for a very long time will recognise the 4 provinces of Ireland as being the same as what we have in in very early EU4. This very much got changed afterwards. But then we have provinces map mode. Fix the colours on the provinces map mode so you can see the individual provinces a bit more clearly. These are largely based on the historic counties, which have remained fairly constant throughout history, while merging some of those that are too small. It's funny, fairly consistent throughout history is all well and good, but I know that the county that I was born in stopped being a thing in like 1999 and was rolled into the county of Yorkshire, which is very funny. But yeah, some of those that are too small got merged. We've almost certainly offended someone. I'll be offended on their behalf. The ancient Scottish shires are also pretty messy and difficult to coalesce into neat provinces, so any suggestions for better arrangement there would be very welcome. So, looking here, my own county got rolled into Durham. So, I suppose I'm fine with that. That it is what it is. Sure, why not? I feel like, I mean, Yorkshire is like these this is North Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, East Yorkshire. Like, this is Yorkshire, but riding sign, it's fine. That's also a pretty appropriate name for it. And I honestly don't know much about the rest of the regions, so I don't know. Locations. You might notice that locations in Ireland are varying, written in both English and in Irish. This is because we have the new system up and running, where we can name locations by the primary culture of the country they're owned by. That's perfect. That's awesome. This means that, for example, London might be called Londres if it was ruled by... Oh, I was doing it in a bloody French accent, my bad. If it was ruled by a Catalan country. It's currently a work in progress feature, and we might add more elements, such as a game setting to base the name on the dominant culture of the location instead, or just to use default English names. So, here we go. What are we getting? Bloody Stockton? Really? Okay, I mean, I feel a little bit slighted, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense. So, as you may have just guessed, my own county, my own location, I guess, at the start of the game in 1337 would be in Stockton. It's not where I live now, so yeah, don't even worry about that. I'm not doxing myself. I haven't lived there for 20 years. But I come from Middlesbrough, which is like right here on the border between Stockton and Whitby. Whitby Beach was the closest beach to us. So I'm from like right here. Darlington is a much smaller town than Middlesbrough is today. I believe, I'm almost certain that's true. And this was also where B&Q was. But yeah, in 1337, the town that I'm from, Middlesbrough, had a total population of 4. So it definitely makes sense that we don't see Middlesbrough on the map. And yeah, the population of Middlesbrough was exceptionally low up until around about 1820, which makes Middlesbrough's inclusion in Victoria 3's map wild to me. Like, that it makes no sense because the population there was still very, very, very small and insignificant, and it's one of the, dozen provinces or dozen cities that are named on Vicky 3's map, and yeah, it makes no sense, but not much of that game does. But yeah, no, we got some locations here, and yeah, if you are from any of these places, then look, you can see your stuff. I find it interesting that Somerset is not one, but maybe Somerset is. Okay, it's being named as a province, just not a location. That's fair enough then. But yeah, Southampton, Wight, we're basically saying that the Isle of Wight is its own location. Makes sense. Got London here, of course. Move over to Ireland, and we can see got Cork, Wexford, Dublin, all written in English. But then if we look at places like this is Sligo in English, but it's written in Irish. Donegal is Donegal. So yeah, there's Longford there is An Longfort or something like along those lines. What else we got? Roscommon is Roscommon. Galway is in English. Killarney. Yeah, but it's looking all right. It's looking very much much more granular than I was expecting. Like this is more granular than England, which is kind of wild to me, but hey, it's probably fine. But yeah, okay, interesting. I think Ireland players are gonna have a real good time in this game for sure. Government types. As with most of Europe, most of the governments are currently under some monarchy or other. But the Irish Tuathas begin with the tribe government type. This, among other monarchies, such as the Redacted, helps give them a very unique playing style in Europe. So yeah, so there are a bunch of tribes, and then monarchy is the order of the day. All right, this is something new. We're actually getting a bit of, like, flavor and history around the countries. I don't think they did this for the other Tinto maps, did they? Unless I'm completely misremembering everything about the earlier posts. England, of course, stands as the dominant kingdom in the Isles. Despite having a lot of power resting on the barons, the country is fairly unitary even at this point, with very little practical separation between the Crown's power in somewhere like Kent versus Yorkshire. However, there are notable exceptions. The powerful Burgesses estate in the City of London enjoys ancient freedoms from the royal power, while the king peers in from the Crown seat of power in the neighbouring Westminster. Right, because isn't Westminster the capital? We heard this in a previous Tinto talks. Westminster was the capital, but London, I think, should be. Yeah, I don't know. The County Palatine of Durham is not represented by a country, but buildings that give the clergy estate a huge amount of power in the locations it is present in. This also ties into the political gameplay as... Not a fan of the censorship. Not a fan of the censorship. The newly created Duchy of Cornwall, the only duchy in England at the time, would also not be represented well by the Cornwall country, despite being a disparate set of manorial holdings that are ironically mostly in Devon. Cornwall, of course, exists as a releasable country, though. Makes sense. The Isle of Man is a little less certain. For now, we have it as a subject of England. On paper, it was a kingdom awarded to William Montagu, the king's favourite. However, we aren't sure if he actually wielded any real power on the Isle. It changed hands between England and Scotland numerous times in this period, but in practice it appears to have been governed by a local council of barons. Any more detail on exactly what was going on here in this period would be greatly appreciated. These decisions have been made because, as England heaves itself out of the feudal system, we thought it would be best if the small fry inward-looking internal politicking is handled through the estates and redacted systems. And then the diplomacy tracks are freed up for the English player to behave more outwardly against other major countries. Alright. I like it. I like it. Though subjugated by conquest, Wales were not formally annexed into the Kingdom of England until the mid-1500s. As such, the Principality begins as a Dominion subject under England. And what form Dominions take, we actually don't know yet, so we need to wait and see and learn about that. Those familiar with Welsh history will note that historically the Principality of Wales didn't extend much beyond the Old Kingdom of Gwynedd. Much of the country to the southeast was in fact ruled by marcher lords, which we represent with a powerful nobility estate in the valleys and beyond. There is an alternative vision of Wales that I would like to gauge opinion on, and that is expanding it to include the earldom of Chester and the marches on the English side of the modern border. If you're an Englishman familiar with the modern borders, this might look alarming, but these lands were also constitutionally ambiguous for parts of the Welsh marches until the 1500s. This will hand over to the Wales player the full responsibility of dealing with the marcher lords, allowing England to focus on the bigger pictures like beating France. I am not somebody who is familiar with this. So, obviously I am aware of the modern borders because I have seen maps. Like, those aren't anything new to me. But whether this makes more sense or not is... I'm not ambiguous. I am ambivalent. I think it could go either way as to what is better for the game. So I will leave that up to more people who have more of a vested interest in the region. I'll leave that up to those people. But yeah, if you have any suggestions, comments, or insight into any of the things that are written here, leave it in the comment section below. There will also be a link to this forum thread that you can go and post on the forums as well, and that would be very, very useful for the developers. Ireland is going through a moment of change. English royal power is centred on the lordship of the Pale, the king's dominion ruling out of Dublin Castle. However, it struggles to keep a grasp on the rebellious Hiberno-Norman earls scattered around the island, some of whom remain as vassals, some of whom have managed to slip free of royal control. The tanistry system of succession, endemic to the Gaelic Irish, has its advantages, but can also lead to chaotic feuds between rival branches. The so-called Burke Civil War has fractured the powerful earldom of Ulster into rival Burke cousins who jealously feud over the shrinking lordships of Connaught. Native Irish princes of the north have reconquered much of their own lands from the De Burghs, but there are also two rival O'Neill cousins who style themselves King of Tyrone either side of the River Bann. The feuding Irish lack a unifying figure, but anyone powerful enough could theoretically claim the title of High King. The former provincial kingdoms, such as Meath and Connaught, enjoy the elevated rank of duchy, giving them a slight edge in the high kingship selection. Alright, like I said, people often enjoy playing as Ireland in EU4. There's obviously the achievement Luck of the Irish, and I think it's also going to be pretty popular in EU5, for sure. It looks like it's going to be a lot more rewarding, because even just staying as the island of Ireland is probably going to be a rewarding game. Scotland, though. The Chancellor Edward Balliol continues his attempt for the Scottish throne. With England's tacit permission, it's hard to determine the exact lands held by Balliol in 1337, but we know his disinherited loyalists hold the castle of Perth, while his English allies had seized large tracts of lowlands from Bruce. Balliol has also brought the loyalty of the MacDonald and the other Hebridean galley lords by granting them remote land on the west coast of the mainland. Meanwhile, Scotland's canny regent Sir Andrew de Moray launches his decisive counterattack as his true king David de Bruce awaits in exile in France. So this is the really horrific border situation that Scotland sees itself in. I think it's going to start the game at war, obviously in this civil war that we are seeing here. And I'm really glad to see civil wars actually be present on the map instead of being just rebels, because rebels are whatever, but actually having to fight a war, where that makes more sense to me, and I'm very excited to see this and more civil wars in the future. But dynasties, we know about the Plantagenet, Balliol, and Bruce. So we've zoomed in on Ireland to show the ruling dynasties of the various chieftains and earls. So of course, Plantagenet, obviously we've seen there's the O'Neills in the north. There's the De Burghs, the O'Briens, Fitzgeralds, etc., etc., Butlers. Someone else can pronounce that. Yeah, okay. Mathgamana. Okie dokie. Yeah, Irish names are very difficult to pronounce. Unless you have been, told and you have heard it being said, you're probably not going to get it right, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, that is the name, the dynasties. Cool. Population. Excuse the seams and grayscale map mode. We have something better in the pipeline. That makes me think we're going to get the tinted map mode, the one that will color the map based on the various population numbers, which is awesome. Very much going to enjoy seeing that. But yeah, 5.36 million for England. Certainly the dominant population in the British Isles. I probably would say it's more than the rest combined. I know that it is more than the rest combined in modern times, but definitely makes sense for it to be as high as it is right now, and probably going to make in a normal Paradox game, it is far too easy for England to conquer the entirety of the British Isles, for sure. Far too easy. I think easier than it should be, for sure. I think here we're going to have some kind of situation that makes it so that you can't just use your vastly higher population to just walk over the rest of the the Isles, because it didn't happen historically. Scotland gave as good as they got for for a long time. And any Scot will be able to tell you about Bannockburn. I think I pronounced that wrong, but whatever. And even the Irish gave us bloody nose on many an occasion, because transporting an army onto a different island and then fighting there as if it's homeland is not easy. So I think there's going to be some kind of method to keep this in check, let's say. But moving on to individual location populations, let's zoom in on this one. 34,000 in Stockton, and yeah, if we made it be called Middlesbrough, it would simply be 4. And there's also the road running all the way north to south. I love to see this. I love to see that. I'm not sure I enjoy seeing it on the population map mode, but yeah, this, I believe, I can't remember what it's called. I don't think it's called the King's Road. I think I'm literally just pulling that straight from Game of Thrones. But I know it's got something along those lines as its name. But yeah, love to see the roads. I think they definitely deserve a place. And also a little bit of roadage in Ireland as well. And that is all for now. As always, the team is eagerly awaiting feedback and looking forward to discussions. And yeah, I just got to reiterate that on the Iberian Dev Diary, the Iberian map, they added 120 extra locations based on your feedback. So feedback works. You should be giving it, and that's it. You should give feedback. It works. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this Tinto Maps video. I'm enjoying it. I like doing these videos. I like seeing my homeland represented, and I will continue to bring these to you when they become available. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Leave your comments in the comment section below. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe to keep up to date and informed about Project Caesar, and I will see you guys on Sunday for Lambert Talks about what Tinto Talks has been talking about. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.